Yo, 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 what is up, everybody? This is Chad with the Fit CEO podcast by Chad Molyneux. I hope you guys are doing fantastic. Beautiful day in sunny Austin, Texas. I hope it's sunny and beautiful where you are at as well. I got a text from my parents. My parents are in Connecticut. That's where I grew up, and they just got like 2 feet of snow. So very grateful for the weather down here in Austin. But real quick, before we dive into today's topic, I need an intro song. Okay, I need an intro song. I've gotten a couple suggestions. The suggestion that I really like is Queen. As you guys know, I don't know if you see, but I post on my story quite often about Queen. Ever since the Queen movie came out, I have absolutely loved Freddie Mercury and Queen, and have been diving like deep into their history, reading books, listening to videos. Like, absolutely love Queen. So I was thinking that I could make the intro to this podcast "Don't Stop Me Now" by Queen. Don't Stop Me Now, business correlates, me, Queen correlates. I think it works perfectly. However, I need a remix because for obvious reasons in licensing, I can't just post the actual song on here. So if you guys have a Queen Don't Stop Me Now remix that you guys think is good, make sure you just slide to my DMs, send me that, because I want to make some variation of that song the introduction to this podcast. Now, nonetheless, I believe we are on episode 4. Last week, what we talked about, if you missed last week's podcast, was if you have a small following, why you don't need a big following to grow your online fitness coaching company. And on top of that, I actually gave you a 3-step strategy on what you should do if you do have a small following in order to grow and scale your business. So if you missed that one, I absolutely loved that one. I would pause this one, go back and listen to that one, and then come back over and listen to episode 4, because what we're going to be talking about today is anxiety in business, right? So quite honestly, I wanted to just talk about anxiety, but because this is a business podcast, I'm going to talk about anxiety in business because I think it's really, really important, really important. And this might be the most woo-woo podcast I do. I'm not a very woo-woo person. I'm very business oriented. I'm very type A. I'm very cut and dry. I'm very direct. But I do think this is a really important skill to master, because if you can harness anxiety, right? If you can actually master your anxiety, it actually becomes a massive tool in business. And we're going to dive deeper into that. I'm also going to talk about my story and my experience with anxiety as well, because it's something that I've definitely struggled with throughout my whole entire life. So let's get into it. Why did I choose to do this one? Like I told you guys, anxiety can propel you or it can cripple you, right? It can propel you forward if you harness it, if you master it, if you understand it, or it can absolutely cripple you if you let it, right? And I've been on both sides of the coin, not the corn, the both sides of the coin. In the beginning of my life, it absolutely crippled me. And now I feel like I have a really good grasp on it. Obviously, it's a continued practice, but I feel like I have a really good grasp on it. And I like to believe that everybody has a superpower. I would actually like to say that this is probably my superpower, because I can harness this energy, which really is what anxiety is at the end of the day anyways, right? It's energy. Because I can harness this, I can use it purposefully in my business to get business success. Okay, so let's dive into my story and my background with anxiety, because I think it's important to the context of this podcast. All right, so quite honestly, I think I had anxiety my whole entire life. When I was younger, I was always deemed the trouble kid. I was always deemed the fidgeter. I was always deemed the bad student because I couldn't pay attention. My parents thought it was ADD, ADHD. I went to all the psychiatrists out there, and I got medicated. I think Ritalin is what I got medicated with. Some ADHD medicine, and it made me go absolute bonkers. I was just like angry all the time, irritated all the time. So my parents took me off it, but I always struggled in school, and we couldn't really pinpoint it. Now in hindsight 2020, I know I just had really, 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 really bad anxiety. Now that anxiety actually picked up over the course of my life. Between the ages of 16 and 24 were probably the worst bouts of anxiety that I've had in my whole entire life. I can't tell you why. I honestly don't know why I was anxious. I think I'm just naturally an anxious person. And to go deeper into the story, right around the age of 18, it was terribly bad. Like, so bad to the point where like I literally couldn't even function day to day. And I let it get this bad because I got in my head and I would just chronically diagnosed myself with everything under the books. Like I was the person that was searching every symptom, every little feeling that I had, and would just, diagnose myself with all these diseases. I was schizophrenic, I was bipolar, I was anything that I read online that made sense, or I had like a glimmer of the same symptom, I would just diagnose myself with. And to get confirmation, I would go to all these therapists. I would go to therapists and I would say, hey, this is what I'm feeling. What's wrong with me, right? What's wrong with me? And I was constantly looking for an answer. The answer that I always got is you're just anxious. And I wouldn't actually accept that answer because I was like, no, that can't be it. So I would bounce to the next therapist and the next therapist and the next therapist. And they all just told me the same thing. You're anxious. You need to calm down. You need to meditate. You need to do all of these things. But I never wanted to accept it. And quite honestly, between those ages of 16 and 24, because I was so lost, confused, anxious, I also was really depressed. And I think that's probably, I know I talked about this in my first podcast. It's probably the reason why I bounced around to so many colleges, because I was just looking for answers. And like most, adolescent to teenage to early teen people are, they're just looking for answers, right? They're looking for answers. They're looking for solutions. And I think that's why I bounced around to so many colleges. I think that's why I bounced around to so many therapists, because I was just trying to figure myself out. But it was probably the most anxiety ridden time of my life. On top of that, I decided that I wanted to grow a business, and it wasn't going well, as you guys know, if you listened to the first podcast, and that just added to the anxiety. But it was absolutely crippling, took over my mind. And really, I'm very thankful that I've crawled out of that hole. And I think, and actually now that I think, I know it has to do a lot with what we're going to talk about in today's podcast. So as you guys know, I told you guys the story. It's definitely something that I've been struggling with and, continue to struggle with, but in a different aspect, having anxiety. I know a ton of people out there have anxiety and don't really talk about it, right? Especially in a business context, because when you're in a business, you're supposed to be this macho man or macho woman that, doesn't feel anything and just crushes life and, nothing ever affects them. But really behind the surface, we're all stressed out. We're all anxious, right? But how can we harness this energy, stress, and anxiety to our benefit instead of our detriment, right? This will probably be a shorter podcast, but I think once again, it's really powerful because if we can harness this skill, I promise you, you are going to have so much better success in business, and not just better success, but you're actually going to enjoy business and have fun with it because you're going to feel in control, right? So let's get into the 2 points that I have. Point number 1, anxiety is an indicator, right? And this indicator really, really helps you feel decisions, right? Or make decisions. But it only is an indicator if you are self-aware, right? And here's what I'm getting at. You're going to feel anxiety when you're going down a good path, and you're going to feel anxiety when you're going down a bad path. And that's what makes it so confusing, right? Because you feel anxious, and because a part of anxiety is looking for solutions on why you feel anxious, it always feels as though you are going down the wrong path, right? But I'm telling you from experience, anxiety is an indicator that you're going down the right path, or it could be a indicator that you're going down the right or the wrong path. And that's why this formula is so important. It's self-awareness, being self-aware of the situation if you're going down the right path or the wrong path, plus anxiety, right, which is a part of both pathways. Going down the right path or the wrong path is going to help you with direction. And really what it's going to help you do is it's going to help you with your decision-making process. All right. So going back to my story, right? College, I felt terribly anxious. Why? Because I was going down the wrong path. It was not the right path for me. So I felt really anxious, right? When I was growing my business from ages 19 to all the way up until today, I felt anxious, but I was going down the right path because it was something that was actually making me happy, right? So you have to be self-aware, and you have to understand, okay, cool. Am I feeling anxious because I'm going down the wrong path? This isn't for me, like college was for me. Or am I going down the right path and I'm feeling a little bit anxious because it's something new and it's something I don't understand yet, right? And that's the big indicator, right? If you know you're going down the right path and you're just feeling anxious because it's not something that is familiar with you, it's something that you need to understand, a new skill, or you have to develop all these new practices. Then once again, your self-awareness should kick in and you should have a clear understanding that you're going down the right path. And that anxiety becomes an indicator that you are going down the right path, right? And then on the flip side of that, right, if you are going down the wrong path, right, your self-awareness should kick in and you say, damn, I feel depressed. I feel anxious. I know I'm going down the wrong path right now. And that's an indicator that you need to make a change. All right. So life is all about perspective, right? We can view anxiety as a way that can absolutely cripple us, or we can view anxiety for something that can propel us, right? And one of those ways is letting it be an indicator on where you're at and where you're heading. Anxiety happens when you're going down a good path. Anxiety happens when you're going down a bad path, right? But the formula is self-awareness plus anxiety equals decisions and direction. Okay. That's honestly the biggest takeaway that I want you to have from this podcast today is be self-aware of why you're anxious. Is it because you're going down a new path and you're being challenged? Or is it that you're going down the wrong path and you know you need to make a change? Okay. I have one other point, because once you can harness that, and it takes a while to harness that, right? And it really takes a lot of self-awareness. Like you have to first understand that you're anxious, then you have to identify where you're at. But once you can knock down that formula, anxiety becomes rocket fuel, right? It becomes rocket fuel. And I've said it a few times on this podcast, but anxiety is nothing more than just energy in your body, energy that wants to be used up, right? And you know how you feel when you're anxious. You're all jittery, right? You feel anxious. That's what anxiety is. And it's that energy that can be harnessed to propel you. So once you have the direction, once you have the decisions from the aforementioned, wow, I'm losing my train of thought, formula, there's the word, right? Then you can use that anxiety and that energy and give it some direction, right? The way that I like to view it is I had so much anxiety that my energy was going in 1,000 different directions. I felt like I didn't have a scope on, right? But once you have the direction and once you understand the formula that we talked about before, you can aim that scope and you can put all of that energy towards going down the right path. And I promise you, you are going to also realize that this is your superpower. Anxiety gives you a great amount of energy to put forth towards the task and absolutely smash it. And when I said that this is, if I had a superpower, this would be my superpower, this is exactly what I'm talking about. I move very fast on projects. I move very, very fast in business because I understand where I'm going, why I'm going there, and then I shift my direction and I shift my energy towards that task. So guys, wrapping up this podcast, I know it's a bit of a shorter one, which makes me kind of sad. I like the longer ones. You have to harness this ability of anxiety, because if you're growing a business, right, and if you want to continue to scale that business, you are constantly going to be faced with stress. You are constantly going to be faced with anxiety, which is normal, by the way, but you have to understand how to harness this anxiety. And what it comes down to is being self-aware on if the anxiety is coming from you're going down the wrong direction or if you're going down the right direction, and making a decision based off of that self-awareness. And once you make a decision, it's taking that energy, AKA anxiety, with a scope, with the direction, with the decision, and putting all of that energy towards that task. So I hope this was helpful for you guys. Anxiety, like I said, is something that I've definitely struggled with for a long, long time. I feel like I finally have a really good grip on it, which doesn't mean that I don't feel anxious. Trust me, I feel anxious. I'm anxious right now. I feel anxious all the time. I just know how to deal with it and how to use it to my benefit instead of my detriment.